conic section curves equations all have x squareds and y squareds in them. So this is ridiculous. I just had my paper. Well, what am I gonna do? Hopefully there's an extra one because all right. So we actually studied circles before. Gonna look at the first couple of equations in your notes. Let's find the center and the radius. And I'm actually gonna do C first. Because even though it looks like the hardest one, it's actually the easiest one, I think. So our job, we have an x squared and a y squared. We have an x squared and a y squared added together. That means we have a circle. And you'll remember, there's going to be 4 different kinds of equations we're going to be looking at. The circle, the hyperbola, the ellipse, and the parabola. Okay? X squared plus y squared is a circle. If I FOILed this out, do you see that I would have an x squared plus a y squared? Okay, so all these are circles. The center of this circle, anybody want to take a wild guess? We talked about this earlier in the year, back in August. They remember? -1, 3. That's my center. And my radius is 4, the square root of 16. So that's how we find the center and the radius of a circle. It's really easy. You can look at the equation. Center is -1, 3. Now, where do you think the center is of the first problem here? Any guess where the center is here?
1.
0, 0. If the center were at 1, you would have x minus 1. We don't have any numbers there, would you agree? That means it's 0. And then the radius would be what?
2.
2, yep. So how about this one right here? Where's the center here? 0, 0 again. And the radius is? Square root of 10. It's okay to have radicals. They happen. Not every number is a perfect square. Okay, now what about this one? It's kind of a combination. Where's the center of this one, do you think? 4, 0. That's exactly right. Why is the y 0? Because there is no number with the y. And then what's your radius? Square root of 17. Easy peasy. Now, when things get a little bit more interesting is when we get to problem E. What is different about problem E? You don't have these parentheses, right? It's not written in what we call the standard form. So, what you are going to do is rework equation E so that it looks like equation C. So here is how you get started. And you might remember this because we did this earlier in the year. Here's how we get started. Let's talk about the changes I made when I wrote my equation down. Okay, so first of all, do you see how I grouped my x's together and my y's together? I took the 5 and added it over to the other side, so it became positive 5 on the other side. And then, when I grouped my x's together, I left a little blank, because I am going to figure out a number to write there that is going to turn these 3 terms into an x squared parentheses. Look at problem C. There's an x parentheses, right? You're gonna make it, but you need a special number to make that happen. And then you're gonna do exactly the same thing with your y's. And of course, whatever you add to this side to make those squares, we have to add to the other side too, because it's an equation. So here we go. I'm gonna complete the square. Anybody happen to remember how that works, completing the square? We take half of 4. What's half of 4?
2.
Squared. 4. That's what goes there. And of course it goes over here. Okay, what's half of 6?
3.
Squared. Goes here. Tell me you remember completing the square, you guys. We did a whole bunch of that. We did it in Algebra 2 also. Now, if I told you to factor this, you know, like this, what would those factors look like? If you factored this right here, x
minus 2.
minus 2?
Yep.
So in other words, this is x minus 2 squared? What's this one? Y plus 3 squared? And then all that adds up to 18. Now, can you tell me the center and the radius? What's the center? 2, -3. And what's the radius? Square root of 18, which that one does reduce. So 3 radical 2. I need to fix my attendance here. All right, let's try another one. Let's try F. Maybe I can squeeze it in here. So when you write down F, you're gonna group your X's together and leave a blank. And then you'll group your Y's together and leave a blank. Now, the 15 is already over there, so you don't need to move it this time. The 15 is already on the other side of the equation. To remember though, that you got 2 blanks on this side, you're gonna have 2 blanks over there. This is going to be a parentheses squared, and this is going to be a parentheses squared. This one is going to be x plus, and this one is going to be y minus, and now we just have to figure out the numbers that go in there. So remember how we do that. How do we fill this blank? We take half of 10, which is 5, and we square it, which is 25. And then that 25 also comes over here. All right, how do we fill that blank? Half of 8 is 4, squared is 16. Also over here, do not forget both sides. Okay, what's this gonna be? X plus, that plus tells me that's a plus, so x plus what? 5, yep, 5 squared, 25, perfect. This one's gonna be y minus 4, perfect. And all of that adds up to 56. Is that right? So where's my center? That was your objective. Find the center. What's the center? -5, 4. And the radius is square root of 56, which I'm sure breaks down. Let's see, 8 and 7, 4 and 2. Looks like 2 root 14. If I break it down. So how do we feel about that, okay? Not too bad. Oh, good news, there's another one. Now, I don't want you to be confused. Put the X's together and leave a blank. Now, what do you notice about the Y's?
There's only one.
There isn't another one, right? There's only y squared, which is great news. And move that 8 over to the other side. If you don't have two y's to group together, then you're only going to complete the square one time because there's nothing to group there, and so we don't have to worry about that one. But we do have to worry about this one. So what's going to go in that blank?
64.
64, very good. How did we get 64?
Half of 16.
Half of 16 squared. So, what do we got here? It's gonna be x plus what? 8, because 8 squared is 64. Now, where's your center? Don't be confused. You know this. Where's the center?
-8, 0.
-8, 0. There is no other y to get added in there, so it just stays 0. And your radius is square root of 72, which is 6 root 2, because it's 36 times 2 is 6 root 2. Would you agree? Okay. Now we're going to go backwards. Now you're going to write the equation. This is easy. A and B are easy. If the center is at -3, 2, and the radius is 7, what would the equation? This is the equation of a circle. It looks like this. This is what you're shooting for. What's this one going to be? X plus 3. Don't forget to square it. All your conic sections, everything in this chapter is going to have squares, okay? Plus y minus 2. And what's it going to equal? 49. Very good. Isn't that easy? There's nothing to that. That's easy. What about b? What is the equation of b going to be? X minus 5 squared. Put that in parentheses and square it. Plus, now, I'm just going to write y squared, but if you wrote y minus 0 squared, that would be okay. Isn't that the same thing? So if you feel better writing that, it's all right. It's the same thing. And what's it going to equal? 10. Square root of 10 squared is just 10. Now we're going to go back. This was a test question back in chapter P, our very first chapter, where we had a circle and it had a diameter, and everybody remembers what a diameter is. A diameter is a chord that goes to the center of the circle. And the endpoints are 1, -1, and 3, 7. And you are to write the equation of that circle. Now, a minute ago, without really any practice or coaching, you were given a center and a radius, and you wrote the equation of the circle. You need to do the same thing here. You need to write the equation of the circle. So what do we need to know? If we're gonna write the equation of a circle, what do we need to know to make that happen? How did we get this? We had to know the center, and we had to know the radius, okay? That's what I know right now. So can I figure out anything I need from that? Can I figure out the center? Where is the center? Isn't that the center? And what's its relationship to these guys? Right, smack dab in the middle? So isn't that the midpoint? How do we find midpoint?
X minus.
It's the average. We just average. How do you average? You add and divide by 2, right? I give you 2 numbers, and I say, what's the average? And we add them and divide by 2? Okay, so let's do our x's. What's 1 and 3 divided by 2? So x average is 2, all right? What's negative 1 plus 7? I'm doing my y's now. Negative 1 plus 7 is 6, divided by 2 is 3. So the midpoint is at 2, 3, which means my equation looks like what? X minus 2, y minus 3. All right, so far so good. Now, what's this over here? How do I find that number? What do I need to know? How did you know that was 49? 7 squared. So what did you need to know? You needed to know the radius, okay? So in my picture, isn't this the radius?
Yeah.
I need to find out how long that is. I need to find the distance from here to here. Do we have a means for doing that? Yep, it's called the distance formula. How does the distance formula work? Who remembers? It's a radical. No one remembers? Oh Lord. We subtract our x's, so we take x minus x, and it doesn't matter what order we do. I'm gonna do 3 minus 2. And we square it. And then we subtract our y's, so I'll do 7 minus 3 and square it. So it's x minus x squared plus y minus y squared. All right, so what do we get? Square root of, let's see, 3 minus 2 is 1, squared is 1. 7 minus 3 is 4, squared is 16. So my radius, this distance right here, is the square root of 17. So what goes here? 17. This number is r squared. I always remember it. My equation has x squared, y squared, r squared.
So if I'm using a formula and it's just x minus x, I could have done like 2 minus 3. Like it doesn't matter what word it goes in.
No, because you're squaring it. You're squaring it. So 2 minus 3 would be negative 1, but squared is still 1. All right. Let's skip down and do E, because it's just like the one we just did. So let's work through E, and then we'll come back and do D, because it's very similar, but a little bit different. Okay, so here we go. Problem E. You don't have to draw it, I'm going to. So I have 5, 2, and 3, negative 6. And I'm gonna write the equation of that circle. Now, we did do this earlier in the year, so I do expect this to come back to you kind of quickly. But the equation of the circle is gonna have an x squared parentheses, a y squared parentheses, and it's gonna equal a number over here. Okay, how do I figure out what's gonna go inside the parentheses? These do not go in the parentheses. What's gonna go inside the parentheses? The center. And how do I find the center? I find the middle point. And the middle point is the average. So 5 and 3 makes 8, divided by 2 is 4. 2 and negative 6 makes negative 4, divided by 2 is negative 2. So there's your center. Okay? Which means your equation looks like what? X minus 4, y plus 2? Always the opposite when you put it back into the parentheses. And now I need to know what goes here, and that is going to be my radius squared, and this is going to be my radius. Now, I keep using this pair. Would this also be a radius? Yeah, doesn't matter. Okay, so how do I find my radius? I use my distance formula, which is the radical. And what do I put under the radical? X minus x squared, and y minus y squared. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be the same thing. What's 4 minus 3? 1 squared is 1. Now here I got a bunch of negatives going on, so let's make that positive. What's negative 2 plus 6? 4. Squared is 16. So once again, my distance is the square root of 17, which means that r squared is 17. Okay. Now, D is different, but it's actually a little bit easier. What do you know in D that's really cool? I know what? The center. So without even doing anything else, you can build most of your equation. What's it going to look like? If that's the center, it's going to be what? Parentheses, x plus 5 squared plus y minus 3 squared. And all I need to figure out is, what's my radius squared over here, right? Now, what else do I know? I know the circle contains the point negative 2, negative 3. Now, what that means is the circle goes through that point. So that point is somewhere on the circle. Now, what do I still need here? I need to find my radius. Wouldn't this be a radius right here? So I just need to find that distance. So negative 2 minus negative 5 squared, this is under a radical, plus negative 3 minus 3 squared. So remember, your distance formula, you subtract your x's. square it, subtract your y's, square it, add them together and take the square root. That's how the distance formula works. Alright, so lots of negatives, be careful. Those two cancel, so negative 2 plus 5 is 3, squared is 9. What's negative 3 minus 3? Do not say 0. Negative 3 minus 3 is negative 6. Squared is 36. Oh, I don't even need to do that. What am I doing? It's the square root of 45. I'm writing the equation, so plane 45 goes here. And that's it. Okay. Perfect. We're going to do a little bit of work here with parabolas, and then we're going to back up and do a little review of circles. But let's do a little work with parabolas. Shoot, I didn't give you the definition of circle. Go back to page 1 and right under the pictures, it says circle equals, and we need the definition. So a circle, and then I'm going to give you the parabola definition too. So a circle, by definition, is the set of points in a plane equidistant from a given point. This is a circle. Set of points in a plane equidistant from a given point. Anybody have any guess what that given point is called? It's the center. Yeah, the given point is the center. Anybody have a guess what this equidistance is?
Diameter.
Radius.
Radius.
Yeah, right idea for radius. So, set of points in a plane that are the same distance from a given point. That's what a circle is. Now, what's a parabola? That's on the next page. Set of points in a plane. All the comic sections are what we call plane figures. So they're all going to start with that same thing. Set of points in a plane. Equidistant from a fixed point and a fixed line. So that all the definitions of your conic sections are going to be very, very similar. They're all going to involve set of points in a plane and then some kind of distance. For a circle, we are equidistant from a point, period. That point's the center. In a parabola, we are equidistant from a point and a line. The point, this is probably a new vocabulary word for you. The point is called the focus, and the line is called the directrix. So we are the set of points in a plane, equidistant from a focus and a directrix, a fixed point and a fixed line. You all know what a a parabola looks like, right? What does a parabola look like? It's one of your BFFs. A parabola looks like a U, right? Some of you called them U's, as opposed to an absolute value, which you called a V. Yeah, so the parabolas are the curved ones. All right. Find the vertex, axis of symmetry, focus, directrix, and focal width. You are not going to believe how easy this is. So I've given you grid because I think it's way easier if we actually graph it. So I'm going to be graphing all of this. The vertex is at the origin, 0, 0. How do I know it's at the origin? Well, take a look at problem E, for example. Do you see in problem E how you have things added and subtracted to the X and Y? So it's just like a circle. If there's nothing added or subtracted, then you're 0, 0, 0. That is your vertex. Now, here is the one thing that you absolutely have to memorize. We are going to be looking at two kinds of parabolas. We're going to be looking at x squareds and y squareds. We're going to be looking at positive coefficient and negative coefficient. And that information tells you whether your parabola opens up, down, left, or right, okay? So, if it's an x squared parabola like ours is, and if the coefficient, and this is what we mean by the coefficient, if the coefficient is positive, then you're going to open up. So x squared positive is up. X squared negative is down. And we knew that from before. But the only parabolas we looked at before were the up and downs. Now we're going sideways. If it's y squared, so if your parabola is a y squared, only one of them squared, either x or y. If y is squared, with a positive coefficient, you're right, and with a negative coefficient, you are left. So, right now, without knowing anything else, I know that my parabola is opening up because it is x squared positive coefficient. The vertex, or excuse me, the focus, there's the vertex. The focus is always inside the parabola. So I need to figure out where it is. Well, I know that it's going to be on this sign right here. That is called the axis of symmetry. What does that word mean, axis of symmetry? Can somebody put it into your own words for me?
They match on both sides.
They match on both sides. So if I could somehow fold my blackboard on that line, it would match. It would overlap each other. That's called the axis of symmetry. And it has the equation for this problem, x equals 0. This is my axis of symmetry, and that's the equation where x is 0. Your focus is on there. The focus is on there somewhere. Now, don't plot it yet, 'cause I'm going to tell you exactly where to put it. It's somewhere on there. In order to figure out where it is, you need to know how far up it is. That distance, for some reason, is called P. Vertex to focus, P. In every parabola equation ever in the whole wide world, this coefficient is 4P. Always 4, always, 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 whatever the number is. So if 4P is 8, then P must be 2? which means I'm gonna start at the origin and go up 2. So where are you gonna put your focus? Your focus is gonna be at what point? You're gonna go straight up 2. Well, it's gotta be a point, so what will the point be? 0, 2? If we go straight up, then it's 0, 2? And remember how the parabola is equidistant? So if we went up 2 for your focus, you're gonna go down 2 for your directrix. Now remember, the directrix is a line. The directrix is a line. So don't say 0, -2. That would be that point right there, but that isn't the directrix. The directrix is y equals -2. The directrix is y equals that number. I think we got it all, didn't we? Did we get all the information? Oh, no. Focal width. Don't worry. Don't worry. This is incredibly easy. The focal width would be this width right here. The width of the parabola through the focus. See that number right there? That number is the focal width. So what's the focal width? 8. If you wanted to graph this really carefully, which you don't have to ever for me, but if you wanted to, once I know the focal width is 8, then that would tell me to start here and count back and forth 4, and then I would have a nice, perfect parabola. I'm never grading your picture, guys. I'm never grading your picture. You're gonna have to list this information for me. So I use a picture to get it, but I'm gonna grade focus is 0, 2, directrix is y is -2, vertex is 0, 0, axis of symmetry is x equals 0. Focal width is 8. So don't worry about your picture. It doesn't need to be perfect. All right, let's try B. Y squared equals 12x. What's different about this guy? It's y squared, which means it opens sideways. It's a positive 12, so which way does it open? To the right. How come I put the vertex at the origin again? No added or subtracted. So I'm right at the origin. This time, would you agree that this is my axis of symmetry? That if I folded it, that would be the crease this time? And that equation is y equals 0. Somewhere on there is the focus. Somewhere inside the parabola on the axis of symmetry is your focus. How far is it this time? In other words, what's P? How far is it to the focus? What? 3, exactly. Because, oh, I didn't write down my equation. Y squared equals 12x. Remember, that number right there is 4p. Always. So if 4p is 12, then p is 3. So start right here and go forward 3. So that point would be 3, 0. And then, if I went that way 3 for my focus, I'm going to go that way 3 for my directrix, but it's a line, so you're all going to be tempted to say -3, 0. I get it, but that's not it.
X equals.
This is it. And that is the equation where x equals -3. We talked about this earlier in the year, we'll talk about it again. Sometimes we get confused, is our line an x equals or a y equals? Graph it. If it crosses the x-axis, it's x equals. If it crosses the y-axis, it's y equals. What's my focal width? 12. My focal width is 12. So that means if I were plotting this more accurately, this would be 12, which means up 6 and down 6. All right, we're gonna do one more, and we'll do a circle review. So C, here we go. Can anybody tell me where the vertex is? In problem C,
3.
okay, the vertex is a point,
3,
so I have to put it somewhere. +3, 0. Why is it 3, 0? I think everybody sees why it's 3. Why is it 0?
There's no added.
There's no added or subtracted. There's plain y. Now there's a multiplier on there and that's fine, but there's nothing added or subtracted. So this time my parabola's vertex is right there. Now it's an x squared, and that coefficient, this is the coefficient, is positive. X squared positive opens up. So my parabola looks like this. Here is my axis of symmetry. Would you agree with that? You'll fold it in half. That is a line that crosses the x-axis at 3. So that's the line x equals 3. That is your axis of symmetry. Your focus is on there somewhere. Always on the axis of symmetry. We need to figure out how far up we're going to go. That's P. What is P? So we go back to our equation and we look at this number right here. What do we know about that number? It is always 4P. So 4P is 2, which means P is a half. So I'm going to start at this point right here, and you got graph paper. Start at this point right here and go up 1/2. Where will that point be if I go up 1/2? What are the coordinates of that point? Watch it. 3, 1/2. Are we still going over 3, but now we're going up 1/2? So 3, 1/2, that's your focus. If you went up 1/2 for your focus, you're gonna come down 1/2, straight down 1/2.
Y.
So it's gonna be y equals -1/2. You came down 1/2. So y equals -1/2. That is your directrix. And then what's your focal width?
2.
Focal width is 2. That's that number. No work. It's right there. Focal width is 2. All right. So we'll stop there. Make a note here so I remember. And all right, let's do this right now. All right, and we're gonna do it as a group. So here we go. All right, so I got a circle. And I know that there's a diameter. And his endpoints are 4, 2, and -6, 8. And your job is to write the equation of that circle. All right, so is there anybody who feels like you can get that started? Maybe not do the whole thing, maybe do the whole thing. Is there anybody who feels like you can get that started? Okay, you have to find the center. All right, so one out. Go ahead, you go ahead. Go ahead. Find the center. People will help you. You're not doing this by yourself. It's a group project. Helping. You have a stake in this also. I don't know, what do we think, class? Are you with him?
Alright.
I think he's got the right center.
Yeah.
What's in that first parentheses? Does that say x plus 1?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it should say. Perfect,
And you
okay.
gotta erase. So that's like the formula.
Yeah,
Alright.
Subtract your x's.
Alright.
so he said, what is that, a 34?
Yeah, 34.
How does his equation look to everybody? Nicely done, Evan. Beautiful,
Scored.
beautiful,
Hey,
beautiful. Okay, now, beautiful. If you found the radius first without the midpoint, you would be finding this distance, and you have to cut it in half. Because you need the radius. You need the radius. So you can find the diameter, but you have to remember to cut it in half. So I always just start with the midpoint, but you don't have to. But you gotta remember to cut it in half. All right, one more, quickly. Need another volunteer. Evan, you did great with that. So I need another volunteer. And we are gonna find the center and the radius of this circle, so that's a circle, and our job is to find the center and the radius of that circle. All right, so let's go, volunteer, quickly.
Volunteer, open
Go.
Come on, Kendall. Come with me, Kendall.
Come with you.
Okay, this costing you points. Let's go, hurry up, guys.
Top.
We should all be working to make sure these guys are on the right track. So would you guys come up with 3, -4 was your center?
Yep.
And the square root of 29? Beautifully done. And I love that it's a team effort. You did the first part, good work.
Yeah, we tag team.
We tag team that, good job. All right, so that was a little quiz. 10, 11, and Derek all get bonus points. Because they helped us out. 8-1 homework, the circle homework is due on Wednesday. So make sure you get that done.